agriculture in a lot of cases gets viewed as this slow to move, non-technologically advanced industry, and it couldn't be further from the truth. I think we do some really interesting things.
Welcome to the Cultivating Leaders Podcast, where we get inside the minds of changemakers to harvest great ideas and leadership lessons that help you grow as a difference maker in food and agriculture. I'm your host and curiosity captain, Nicole Ursig. Today we have with us Teddy Bekele. He is a true innovator at the intersection of agriculture and technology. He serves as the Chief Technology Officer at Land O'Lakes, where he is leading the charge to bring cutting-edge innovation to agriculture and business. With a background in engineering and a passion for digital transformation, Teddy is leading efforts to modernize the agriculture industry through data, connectivity, and bold strategic tools. Under his leadership, Land O'Lakes isn't just thinking about the next harvest, they're planning for the next 100 years. Teddy, welcome to the pod. What did I miss from your bio?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. I'm really honored and really excited about our conversation. What did you miss from my bio? Based on my background, I think two little hobbies that I have that you'd find interesting. One is I'm really into coffee and have been more in the last few years. Even gone as far as roasting it, although I've realized I'm not a good roaster, but I do like to drink really good coffee around the world. So that's one little fact. The other one, I like to make pizzas. That's the Italian side. So that's something I've been perfecting over the last year or so. And I think we got to a spot where it's an acceptable Italian pizza. So those are the two things that would round out who I am.
So fun. Okay, so Teddy is also a true foodie. So what would you recommend, Teddy? What is the best coffee you've had? And what is the pizza you make the best?
Okay. So the best coffee, I'll be biased. I was born in Ethiopia and I still, maybe it's in the DNA, but it still speaks to me is the Ethiopian coffee. It has that floral flavor. So I really like that. Although I have really become a big fan of some Colombian coffees as well. Pizza, you have to make the margarita pizza. If you don't know how to make that, then everything else falls apart from there. So gotta have the basics right. So that's the one I've been working on. And of course, you add the toppings, it only tastes better.
Margarita is one of my favorites, so I love that that was your answer. So, question, I'm not a coffee drinker, but it is my husband's current hyper focus hobby is what I would say. So, how do you make your coffee? Are you like a pour over? Are you a French press? Like what's your method of actually making the coffee?
All right. So I see your husband is into it. So yes, pour overs are my thing right now. And I have a whole method of making that. And that's really how you can bring out the best flavor of the coffee, which by the way, when you start doing pour overs, you also realize how bad of a roaster you are because it is an art. It's like farming. It is an art. There is the scientific methods that go behind it, but it really is more the art that you bring to it and knowing how this bean should be roasted. So pour over, I think, brings the best out of that. But that said, depending on how you roast it, I think espressos are great as well. So I love espressos with a little bit of milk in it. That's also another favorite of mine.
Well, I appreciate the expertise. Okay, so you hinted at it a little bit, but you have a really interesting background. Tell us about your journey, where you started, and how it got you to where you are today.
Yes. So I was born in Ethiopia, mid 70s. And my father at the time farmed about 400 acres of corn, wheat, and cotton. Now, he was the 12th of 12 brothers. So he was the last kid. So as my grandfather passed his land over to his children, he was the one well, not just him, but he was definitely not getting anything. He was going to probably be working one of his brother's farms. So he decided instead of doing all that to go to agronomy school and learn to be an agronomist. And when they graduated college, there was a program that the government had offered at the time where they'd give you 10 acres and you learn your trade and then you go around and teach other farmers. You get to keep half the harvest from that 10 acres and then you can grow it from there if you like to. And that's exactly what he did to grow it to 400 acres, gave the land back at one point and did his own thing. So he was very much an entrepreneur, loved farming, agronomist. So that's kind of the environment I grew up in. Well, about late 70s, a dictator took over the country and nationalized the land. So he just took it away from the farmers overnight. And so my father, who had sort of acquired the land, found himself in a position where he had no land. But he loved agriculture. That's what he grew up in. So then he got into buying crop inputs, particularly crop protection from Europe, and then eventually agricultural machinery, and then selling it into Eastern Africa. So Ethiopia was troubled for a little while. So he focused on Sudan, Kenya, Tanzania, and then Ethiopia again. And so he kept doing that. But at the time, the political situation got bad. So we moved from Ethiopia to Italy. So his base was out of Italy, selling into Eastern Africa. And then at some point, the corruption between the African corruption and the European bureaucracy, he just decided, I just want to come work in the United States where like we'll have better sort of relationships, less money moving from one person to another under the table and all that. And so in the mid 90s, we decided to make the move here. And we moved to North Carolina because Bayer's headquarters was in North Carolina at the time, in the Research Triangle Park. So I finished out my high school there. I had no desire to get into agriculture, just watching everything that happened. I went to school for mechanical engineering and really wanted to build cars. And so went through school and then did a couple of internships, one in power generation, and really loved engineering. But I just like there was something that said, this is really not like my calling. I love learning about it. But then .com happened, like late 90s, early 2000s, and the internet came. I really got fascinated by that. I got a minor in information systems, and then moved over to at least took some positions that would rotate me around, but gave me an opportunity to work in the technology realm. And that's when I knew, like, okay, I do love this. I do love the application of technology. So I went to work for a company called Ingersoll Rand that had the opportunity to jump from being sort of that mechanical engineering background to be more of a technologist. And I pretty much grew up in technology there till this opportunity at Land O'Lakes came up about 12 years ago. Again, I remember at the time them talking about Land O'Lakes being not just a butter company, but a big agricultural company. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's not really what I want to get into. I stayed away from that for so long. But there was something about agriculture that calls home to you. I love the fact that you can apply some of the newer things you've learned and bring that back to agriculture. So took a leap of faith, took this position at Land O'Lakes, and it's been a great journey over the last 12 years. And one thing led to another, and here I am as a chief technology officer at Land O'Lakes.
I love that. I feel like so many people have that as part of their story, whether you grew up in agriculture or not, like resisting, like, oh, this isn't what I'm going to do. No, this isn't where I want to end up. And then it reels you back in,
It absolutely does. I remember coming for this interview, and it really was more of it was through a connection that the whole thing came about. And I did it as almost like as a favor to that person and say, okay, yes, I will come to Minneapolis. We will do the interview. And my wife and I almost took it as hey, maybe we'll just do a little vacation for the two of us, go to Minneapolis for the weekend and come back. And so we did. But I remember coming home from the interview, and she looked at my face and said, I thought we were here for vacation. I didn't think we were going to move here. And I just tell her, like, there's something about ag. I don't understand what it is, but it just brings you back in. And there's just coming home thing. And there's a mission to the work, or there's purpose to the work. And we're excited about it. And the people that I talked to were all excited about it and authentic and genuine. And I'm like, you don't find that in many other places. So it's almost as I kept talking about it, went from, oh my God, am I really going to do this, to getting excited about it. And that's when, she even said, okay, you're too excited about this not to be able to take advantage of the opportunity.
So cool. There's something very special about agriculture. So tell me, Chief Technology Officer at Land O'Lakes, what does that mean? What do you do?
Yes. So I spend a lot of time with a lot of people. That would be the simplest answer. No, my job really kind of breaks up into four areas. So there is the core technology of the organization that runs our company. So we're talking, the servers, the data centers, the help desk, the ERP applications and all that. So we have a big team that supports our company, keeps the company running every day. We make investments in different areas and get better as the technology improves. So that's one big portion. The second portion is information security. So that's around the cybersecurity and privacy. So I have a chief information security officer on my staff, and we make sure this place is protected. We try to do the basics really well and make sure that we not only help our organization, but also the larger cooperative system that's associated with Land O'Lakes. That in itself has a purpose, and we feel really proud that we're able to help out there. Third part of the job is around this concept of digital transformation. And this is where the area gets interesting for me. How do we use emerging and existing technology to be able to transform our business? So think about the normal business model we have in place. How do we do it maybe the same way, but using technology, or maybe differently using new technology that didn't exist 5 years ago? And so I spend a lot of time with our business leaders to try to figure out what that's going to be and how do we participate in this new market. And then the last part of the job is one that was always part of sort of underlying everything, but it's really gone into more of next level pace with the whole explosion of artificial intelligence. Again, we've been working advanced analytics. That's what we used to call it 10 years ago, using statistical models, machine learning models to be able to make better decisions, building interesting insights. But of course, with the democratization of ChatGPT in November of 2022, these large language models are now on the scene. It's available to everybody and really has opened everybody's eyes to, oh my God, we could do so much more with AI. And so that's another area that I'm kind of trying to shepherd a little bit. Now, I'm not pushing for any one specific thing. It's more like, how do we educate our organization, get them ready, get people to be more tech savvy than they are today, understand that AI is not really all that scary once you start to embrace it, and really try to rethink your job using some of these new capabilities that are available. And it's moving at such a fast pace that even just keeping up with all the latest and greatest is really hard, and trying to figure out what is like hype versus what's real. I feel like that's every day's job. So that's the job in essence, kind of covers all the main areas. But like I said, at the end of the day, is serving the people on my team, getting them to bring out the best of themselves, making sure they're on top of their game, and they can also speak to our partners in the other functions and businesses, and really kind of bringing them together and see how we can bring technology to really deliver new capabilities.
What you just said, Teddy, has a million questions running through my head. Let's start with people in agriculture. We can be really slow to adapt technologies. We're kind of laggards sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. So how do you or Land O'Lakes as a whole deal with that challenge that comes with, I think, working specifically in agriculture, where I think from especially a corporate side, there is so much access to what is coming or what's available or what we can do right now. But transferring that to actually on the farm technology can be challenging. How do you tackle that?
First 6 years before taking this role as chief technology officer, I actually worked in our Winfield United group. And we did a lot of interesting things using technology, whether it's remote sensing and satellite images or crop models, which had a flavor of AI into it, and try to develop some tools that we brought to a lot of the farmers that are in our cooperative system. And one thing I found at that time was that farmers are actually entrepreneurs, and they're not really all that slow to adopt. What they are is very cautious about making the wrong move. It's a misconception a little bit. Like, they're the original entrepreneurs. They always are looking for the next greatest thing that's going to come, but it cannot be at the expense of not being around the following year. And the whole "you want to bet the farm on this" like became really just a saying for me. Like, it was real. Like, if I make the wrong move as an owner of this farm that has been handed to me from the last 6 generations, like, I don't want to be the one who like screwed it all up because I made a careless bet. And so what they're looking for is, how do I know like what to adopt, and particularly even better, when to adopt it. So show me where the value is. And if there's an immediate return, it's a no-brainer to do. If it's more of a longer term bet, well, how do we start slow, prove it out, and then see if that's worth pursuing? Now, the other part that's interesting in that is that, especially if you're in row crops, right, which is predominantly what we deal with, you only get so many chances because you only get to plant the crop once a year on that field. So you might try something with a new technology or a new capability or a new biological, as an example, and you want to see, okay, let's try it on maybe half a field or one field or just a strip, and then we'll see how well it did, this product or this technology or this new thing we just deployed, and then we'll see if we make a decision to go broader next year. Well, one year is not the same as the next year. So this year might be really wet, like the nutrients may not be sticking into the soil, and then the next year is the complete opposite. And so now the thing we're trying, it's not a controlled experiment. It's a little bit dealing with the wild environment and everything else that goes along with it. But it was really hard to compare, right? And so this is where you get stuck as far as making like big bets, big bold bets, and trying it. So to your question on how do you overcome that, you just have to do a lot of small experiments. So as a cooperative for Land O'Lakes, what we try to do is, can we do those experiments on behalf of the farmers beforehand, and then make it tangible for them? Can we actually show them the output and then tell them where things worked or didn't work, or we thought it would work, but because of the sort of following circumstance, it didn't. But you do this in like small steps, and we have some research plots called answer plots where we do some of that. Some of that we try to get to some of the farmers that are more willing to place a bet to try to do that. And if you do some of these small, then you start to see the value, right? And maybe it didn't work in one area, but it did in 5 others. So therefore, maybe it's that one area that things didn't quite line up. And so you just do these small experiments and then fail fast, and then see how we can quickly get to the next year and say, okay, now maybe this is time to go a little bit bigger. So again, it's not that farmers are not willing to adopt. It's just a matter of like, we just got to figure out the right mechanism to trial and error and fix and adopt and adapt, and then go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you think about farmers as entrepreneurs, they will adopt anything that has a positive impact on their bottom line. It's just they need to see the proof is in the pudding, especially if they apply it across an entire farm.
That's it. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, and I've, and there are some farmers that do some phenomenal things that are take bigger bets, but that's okay. Like, I mean, it's fun to see that.
Yeah, it depends on your comfortability with risk. And I think if you are in agriculture, whether it's crop or livestock production, you are comfortable with a high level of risk, but you got to be able to manage that risk, right? And part of that is, what do you decide to do that's new versus tried and true?
That's exactly right. And then when you look at, like corporation, like especially a publicly traded corporation taking big bets and making investments, I mean, this is where a farm is a business, but it's also most times a family business. And again, something handed from one generation to the next. So you have a different sense of risk profile compared to an organization that might be borrowing money, trying this thing out. And if it doesn't, that's okay. We move on because we can take the losses. Whereas, like, well, our family livelihood is on the line here. We can't just be messing around. So I think that also adds a sense of like a little more, let's not go all out. Let's just make sure we prove this thing out before we do anything crazy.
Yeah, I like the parallel to a family business. And I think those of the people in agriculture who are listening obviously get that. But if you compare it to other family businesses that you might see in your community, right? Like a locally family owned restaurant or a mom and pop shop of some kind, of course, you have seen technology evolve, right? That like your favorite restaurant, they probably have the iPad for hosting and seating and that kind of thing, or they can do tap to pay. But you don't see them evolve in technology quite as fast as like a Walmart or, a large corporation. The visual for me made it really easy to think about where can you apply some of this new stuff, but where do you wait?
Yeah, that's a great example. 1 to 2 restaurants, family owned business is not going to all of a sudden just install these like the walk up machine where you can like tap the screen and
they're not going to do what McDonald's is doing.
Yeah, like McDonald's can afford to like across all their stores, they try it in like 10 or 15 stores, see how it goes, and then they, like kind of grow it from there. If you have one restaurant, you're like, I'm not going to put all the savings that we've accumulated and to see this thing. And is it going to work? Is it not going to work? People adopt it. Would they like it, not like it? So, you just have to go with things that make sense. But a lot of those restaurants are going to be very entrepreneurial in nature. Like, how can they stand out compared to why would you come here versus going to McDonald's? So they will do some interesting things. It just may not be those big bets that you might see some nationals do.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the other question I have around technology, in an industry that's so rooted in tradition, and I feel like very people focused, where is the humanity in the balance of technology can help us do things and it can help us work easier, but where do you find that balance between human and tech?
So I'll go back to this concept of when I talk about digital transformation, right? If you look at those two words, digital and transformation, in my world, the digital part is the easy part, meaning let's go find something crazy like blockchain or whatever, and let's build this application. Boom, like that part's easy. Now, how do you incorporate that into real business and get people to adopt it every single day and it becomes the thing that they use? That is the transformation side of things, and that is the much harder part. And really, if you go back to what you just asked me, the digital is the technology or whatever the new widget is, and then the transformation is the people side of things. So for something to be successful, those two things have to come together. The people have to embrace it. They have to see why this thing matters to them. How is it going to make their lives better? But at the same time, is this going to be something that's going to destroy who I am, or is it going to take away my ability to make a decision? And so it can't be that. And that's where things become a little bit crazy at times. So the key is to find the right balance. First of all, we always want the human to be in control, the human making the decision. And they're looking at the technology to be the thing that enables you to even go faster or help you make a better decision, right? So you're still making the decision, you still are in charge, but maybe the technology is now helping you do that, right? Basic, simple thing. I mean, we used to be able to connect with people writing letters, and then, and then at some point we did faxes, and then now we got phones, right? And the phones was easy, but like we had to go to a payphone and stop and call somebody, and then there were pagers, and all of a sudden now we have cell phones, and we can not only make phone calls, but we could do FaceTime, and we could, we can look at each other while we're speaking. And I know there's companies pushing the envelope on that as well. But those are the types of things where it hasn't taken like the human connection is still there. If anything, there's probably more human connection now than there were before, right? I can, my mother lives in North Carolina, and if we were back to the old pay phone type days or the phone in the house, we probably would connect once a month maybe, but now I'm able to talk to her multiple times in a week at any given time because my cell phone is always with me. I can even see her, and she has better access to me. There's no leaving a message and getting back to you 2 days later. But that now is I'm in control of that, right? So those are the types of things that I think are the technology is an enabler in that case. It's really helping us be able to do more, connect with more people, bring more of the human nature out of us, the kindness out of us. And I really do believe that. I am an optimist on the technology side. And I actually do think artificial intelligence is going to be one of those technologies that actually will help us be more human in the future. Again, adopted correctly, right? And deployed correctly. And we have to be the ones in charge of deploying it. And that's why I say, embrace technology, don't shy away from it, because the more we understand it, the better we can leverage it for good things.
Yeah, it's a tool just like anything else, right? Like if I'm doing a home improvement project, which is typically when the Ursic household buys more tools, but there's always a purpose for it. And sometimes we have to learn how to use it. I think exactly what you just illustrated with our phones, right? Like it's helped us be more connected, but we also are in control and have to learn how to use it best in different applications. So it sounds like that's what you're saying about AI as well.
Absolutely. And I mean, I might even say something that's a little bit controversial and most companies may not agree with, but, even doing in sort of the typical work environment, doing a performance review. I really like using artificial intelligence to do a performance review.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a hot take. Tell me more about that.
So you're like, okay, wait, are we supposed to be doing that or not? Like, I thought we were not supposed to do that. Here's the thing. I'm an okay writer. I'm not the best writer in the world. And I do performance reviews, but I think, for me in the past, performance reviews, like, okay, we got to do them. It's once a year, etc. But, when you think back and if you're not the one doing the review and you're the one receiving the review, like the review matters to you. You want to hear what your leader thinks about you and how you're doing and what are the things I should be doing better and not. And I want to spend more time thinking about what to say to this person rather than figuring out how I should say it. And I get writer's block a lot of times, and I'm sitting there trying to wait. If I write this, are they going to think of it this? Like, oh no, I don't mean that. Like, and I spend so much time evaluating my writing, and I spend less time in actually what I'm trying to say. So what a lot of the large language models that do it correctly with the tools you have that are your technology organization told you to use. I have that disclaimer. Just go out to ChatGPT and like, oh, let me put all the dirty air or the dirty laundry out. Do not do that, right? But with the tools given, I think it makes a lot of sense because now all of a sudden I'm talking to the model and I'm like, hey, here's the person, here's the background, here's the things they've done really well, and I really want to make sure that they feel good about what they accomplished here. And then from a development standpoint, man, if they could do these couple of things, I think they would really rock it and take it to the next. So I almost just dump my brain into it. It starts to write it up for me. And I'm not done there. Now, if you stop there and you look at it as an efficiency or productivity tool, meaning I used to take 2 hours to do this, I just did it in 10 minutes. I don't think that's good use of the technology tool. It can do it, and you'd have an average to sub-average review. But if you take the 2 hours that you took before and now you are redoing this thing, you can read the whole thing and go, no, that doesn't sound exactly right. I really want to say this. I don't want this to be perceived this way. And now I'm bringing more of my human self. Now I'm starting to think like, well, this is how I said it, but how are they going to receive it? Like, what if I was in their shoes? Like, and then I can even ask the model, what if I wrote this to you? What would you assume from this? Right. And you get into those types of things. And my gosh, the type of review you put at the end, they almost be close to a masterpiece. And you've communicated so much more about exactly how you felt. You couldn't really express in words before in the right way. So I think that's a simple example, but one where something like an AI is not going to replace you, but it will make you that much better going forward.
Yes, I love that you used that example, Teddy, because I think so many people are hesitant to use it or they don't think about using it in some of those applications. So, for example, there's a young lady that I coach, and we were talking earlier today actually about like some harsh feedback that she has to give to someone that she reports to. And she was like, I don't know how to explain this to this executive. And I was like, one of the things you can do, she was taking notes as I was like, here's some of the things that I would say. But I was like, go into go into your AI tool and say, here's what I want to communicate. Now use that as a prompt, right? Like, how would you communicate this to an executive clearly, respectfully, all of that? And it can help, not, I don't want to say give you a script, but at least give you an idea and it can take the emotion out of it, right? Like some of these conversations can be heavy of you've either got to communicate hard feedback or it's uncomfortable or heck, you're frustrated. And how do I communicate that in a way that's going to be well received? I love the idea of using AI as a tool to help you communicate in a way that lands well and doesn't hurt other people, but makes you able to express yourself effectively.
That's exactly right. Now, if you take it to the next level, you can even finish it, or let's say you're going to actually verbally communicate, not just written, right? It can help you with your speaking point, talking points and all that and get you prepared, but you can actually use it to critique yourself. That enters a whole new era of the AI critiquing you, and you could do it by voice or you could do it written. You can tell it, be a harsh reviewer or whatever, and starts to push back. Now, if I said, Nicole, can you critique me? You're going to go, okay, well, should I say this? Should I not say that? This is the good part of the AI. It doesn't have feelings. It doesn't care. It will give it to you. And then, but at the end of the day, it's less intimidating for us to do it. And so it will make you that much better. So it's for us to learn how to actually bring the human element into all this. And so that's why I think there's really a possibility for all this technology to make us more human. But again, it's in that example of well, if we use it for efficiency and we just do, half the quality of the work in a quarter of the time, and that's what we're looking for. Yes, that will not be great for the future. So
yes, yeah, all about how you use it, and I like that how you bring the human side to it, or how it can make us. Honestly, this is going to sound crazy, but AI can make us human even better. Is kind of what we just talked about.
Exactly right.
I am curious, looking to the future, do you have any big, bold bets from a technology standpoint as we look at agriculture?
As we look at agriculture, yes, I do. Well, there's two concepts. There's two big concepts. I know you want one, but I really want to communicate the two. One is this concept of circularity. I really think we should embrace it. And I'll give you an example for that. I went to visit a dairy producer a few years ago, and this gentleman in Pennsylvania just has a great operation. The parlor is located a little bit up on a hill. They have these tunnels built into the hill itself, so the manure gets shoveled into the little holes built into the tunnels, and it goes to a manure pit. And then from there, they take the manure and they also bring in waste from a potato chip company, and then all of that goes into a digester that now is kind of taking all the output out, and then it separates the liquids from the solids and the gases. And then the gases, they go generate energy from it. The liquids are going to be used for fertility, and then the solids are used. He had me touch it, and now you get a little bit should I be touching this, etc. But it is just really rich soil, and it doesn't feel like it came from manure, which really helps us understand sort of the whole ecosystem of life. But he uses it for bedding for the cows, and it's super soft. At the same time, he's like, I could be selling this for potting and flowers and all that, but he's like, and that would be a really good business, but he's like, I actually need more for the bedding for the cows. And then the natural gases that are used back into the generator, they actually produce enough energy to sustain their whole operation, and they actually sell some of it back to the grid. So he's got this whole thing going where it's all connected and it's reusing what we have and actually being even in a better financial spot than they were kind of before they started. So I love that concept. I would love to see more of agriculture do that, right? And we would get out of this, is this the right thing to do, not right thing to do? Are we polluting, not polluting, all that? No, there's a way to actually make all this win. And if we can find this idea of circularity, I think that would be super exciting. So that's one thing I would like to see more and more happen in agriculture. The second side is actually tied to that is, not that I have a lot of spare time, but I really want to get into a field that I knew nothing about and see how different fields connect with one another. So I'm actually on the board of Blue Cross Blue Shield of Minnesota. That is way different than what I do every day, right? It's a healthcare, it's a health plan, insurance business, et cetera. But one of the things I got to see is one of the things insurance companies try to do is obviously people get sick, there's claims come in, they approve most of the claims, and then they only deny when they don't think the right service was offered or it's not the right cure for the thing the patient's having issues with. But one of the discussions we need to have more of is how do we actually use food as medicine? How do we create nutritious food? And again, everybody's DNA is different, so people need different things. So so this is when you say big bold idea, this is not something that happens immediately, but can we grow food, that eventually can be tailored for any one person to ingest that will actually improve their health, right? So eating the right things that fit your criteria. So again, this is not about vegetarians, vegans, flexitarian, what all that mess is. Like, no, it's about like some bodies ingest things better than others, right? So my brother's a diabetic. For him, sugar is a no-no in a lot of cases. I tend to be more on the high blood pressure side. So for me, salt is the opposite. So you can't give us the same meal and go, okay, you guys eat this, you'll both be healthy. Like it's not right. So each of us has to be tailored. So I think if we can actually grow food that kind of starts to fit individual criterias, that would be something magical. And I think it can be done. So you kind of now are using, instead of coming up with some other medicine, like food actually could be your medicine. And I think that resonates with most of us anyhow. So it'll be interesting. But that would be another big dream that I think would be awesome to achieve in the decades to come.
I like it. Well, and I think we are starting to see some of that, obviously, like in animal agriculture, right? From a like, okay, how do we feed and treat these animals different? I'm not even going to say animal agriculture. We can see it in pet health too, of like the DNA tests that are popping up and what the health markers are for your pet, and then how you treat them differently or different food that you give them. And of course, you see it in health trends in humans too. But to think, not necessarily a preference thing, but a health piece, that's really cool.
Yeah, and you're spot on as far as the animals is a place to start, right? And we can learn a lot there. Again, it kind of it's on this mission. We're going to feed the world. We want to make sure nobody goes hungry. But now he kind of make it a little more sophisticated. Not only they don't go hungry, but they actually eat what their body wants them to ingest, and they live a healthy life. And that could apply to animals, it could apply to plants, really, which we do that quite a bit, and of course to humans.
Yeah, it's not just about calories, which I think we still need that in parts of the world, right? Of like how do we produce the calories needed, but how do we produce the right kind of calories? That is a fun way to think about the future of food, Teddy. Okay, so as someone who is a big thinker and an innovator and a change maker, where do you get your ideas from? What advice do you have for people who want to elevate themselves to the level of leadership and visionary that you're at?
Yeah, so I would not consider myself a big ideator. Let's call it that. That's not one of my strengths. I do have crazy ideas, but they usually are just crazy. A lot of the good ideas, it comes from listening to other people. Some cases, it's straight up they do have a really good idea, and we should go after that. In some cases, they have a making of an idea, but it just needs to be combined with something else. And in other cases, they may not even know that they have the idea, but they say something that goes, you know what? If you could take that and combine it with this other thing, and then develop this, then you may have something really interesting going. So like I said, I don't come up with big ideas. One of my strengths has always been the idea of like organizing and editing, right? So like, again, I don't write very well, but you give me something that somebody's written with a couple other things and create the puzzle to create something good, that actually has always been something decent. So a lot of it comes from listening and asking a lot of questions, right? Like when you just ask some people questions, get them to think sort of broadly, and once they get there and give them the opportunity to then sort of not be constrained, they may have some really, really interesting ideas. And then how do you put those things together? And then, of course, I used to have a good mentor that would say, like a good strategy without the execution is hallucination. I don't know if it's an Edison quote or something like that. But yes, like you got to execute it. It doesn't matter how good the idea might be. If you actually can't bring it to life and execute it properly, it's still nothing at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's good advice. Also, unsolicited advertisement right here for a podcast. For our podcast, I'm going to say is like, okay, if you get your ideas from other people, listen in and listen to other folks who have done cool things. So I like that. Okay, so speaking of executing some of these things, I think something impressive that you have done is the restructure and reformation of technology at Land O'Lakes and what that department looks like, which is still requires a big vision, but also execution. So tell me, what gave you the confidence to go for this, and what challenges did you have as you reworked what IT looks like at Land O'Lakes?
Yeah, and again, and you have to remember, like, I mean, I worked in technology even before taking this role, right? So I took this role, and one of the things that and it's always different when you're like in charge of a group. You start to see things that are under a different light that you didn't see it before. And before I always thought, what, like, our technology organization doesn't move as fast as our business needs us to move, right? And
Amen. I feel like there's people in corporate who are just like, amen, what you just said.
right. And it's like, so there's always this question of like, well, if we want to go do something innovative and fast, and do we have to separate out? Like, do we need to have a separate organization of technologists that are like really like to be on the bleeding edge and separate them from the rest of the crowd. And then some people could just do the support and the basic stuff and the kind of keep the lights on while these people work on like the cool stuff, right? Like, and as I thought about that, I'm like there was something about, well, which ones would you pluck out? Because a lot of times the good ones that are, you would say, oh, let come work on the special group, are the ones that are like the the people that hold everything together in the existing environment.
They're kind of like the linchpins making other stuff happen.
Exactly. So you take them out of the whole thing might crumble now, or things don't work as well. So it's like, yeah, that's this idea of a separating and kind of this innovation group separate doesn't really work. What you have to do is change the whole. And so that was one kind of thing that hit me. And the second one was, as we had a challenging year, one of those years in 2019 or something like that. And it was, I remember talking to somebody in technology, and they went, well, I understand that our business is challenged this year for a variety of reasons, and you explained why, but we in technology did our job. So why are we not getting our bonus? Like, you do realize you work for this larger organization, right? Like, you are part of this organization. They're like, no, I get that part, but we did our job. We did our part. And I just, again, that was the second thing that hit me. I'm like, oh, we don't really feel like we're part of this organization. So the big shakeup we did was, okay, technology needs to be closer to the business, and we need to be more integrated. So we went from this approach of, you bring us projects or things to work on, we will price them out for you, whether it's with internal or external resources, and we'll give you a price tag. And then if you say yes, sign on the dotted line and we'll go do it, right? When we have availability, like, which is always the challenging part. To more like, let's not do this anymore. And how about we just take people and take them in pods of like knowledge and assign them to different parts of the business. And they're just embedded in there. And they will absorb all the requests coming in, and then working with their partners, counterparts, co-employees, like together, we'll figure out what to work on. And so that's a good way for our technology to get closer to the business, but it's a good way for the business to get closer to technology. And so that was sort of the big change we made, but it was like, it had a fundamental implications because we were organized by capability, right? So we had people that knew how to do web development, for example, and they were all in one group, and they would just get assigned to different projects. And now what we're saying is, we're going to break up the web development group, and a portion of you are going to go with this team over there. Another one's going to go over here. You guys are going to know dairy. You guys are going to know animal nutrition, right? So all of that. And so they were in this like, well, how am I supposed to continue to improve myself when I am dispersed now, right?
That was the question I was just going to ask. How do they have thought partners that are in the same space?
Right. So that was the biggest like worry at the time. And so we said, well, you know what? Like, when you go in there, the number one thing they found themselves is that all of a sudden they went from somebody telling them what to do to being if you're the only web developer on this team, when somebody says, hey, we need to go do something and on the web and we need an application for this, everybody's going to turn around, look at you, go, yeah, so what do you think? And now you're in the leadership spot. And whether you liked it or not, you're empowered to make a decision. So now we're empowering you to do something. So that was a slight, a subtle but big change. And now when they went, well, I think we might do it this way, but I need to go consult with my other colleagues to see if this is the right approach. So who do you go back to? And that was the idea of setting up still some sort of a center of excellence, or what we call it, a capability team, where you can come back and there's a group of people that work in different areas, but they can come together and go, what are you trying to do? And now people can debate it out. And then that person goes back and they look like a rock star because they're like, I got it. This is what we're going to do. Right. And so that was the key, is to help this. We were not decentralizing technology, because that's not the right way. We were just distributing technology while still having an identity in the middle. And that's one of the things we worked hard on, is how do we continue to manage that identity of the technology group. And we even created like a little saying to say, hey, as a group, we make it possible. It was dorky, yes, but make IT possible. And then in that they could say, I make digital possible, I make collaboration possible, or whatever they want to put in there, signifying that they were part of a larger group, but they were there sort of as, part of the pod that they were representing, and feeling more part of that function or business unit that they're working with every day. Now, you fast forward to now, these people are like domain experts in that area, not only in the capability, but also the areas they work. But again, we still got a long journey. We got to remind people, hey, we made progress, because sometimes it's like, it doesn't feel like you made like 5 steps forward and 6 back, but it's actually 5 steps forward, 2 back. That's okay. That's progress.
Yes. I think when you look back over the long term, that's when you see the progress. But if you're in the day to day, you can still see all the problems that you want to fix and you haven't gotten to yet. So sometimes it's just perspective. But that's a really cool way to think about structuring a team. And it's neat to see how well it seems to be working for you guys.
I think it's human nature where we like to have delineation of like, this is my sandbox. I play in this with my friends. And then you have your sandbox over there and you play in your sandbox with your friends.
But then it creates like a little bit of fight between the sandboxes.
Yes, there's us versus them. It naturally gets created, right? And so this is the work. I mean, when I say I meet with a lot of people, I don't meet on like, hey, let's go create the next best thing. Sometimes, but most of the time is like, hey, we're not agreeing with each other. We're having issues. There's conflicts. This person didn't do that, and we're waiting on them, and they're making the whole thing look bad. And again, it's not trying to mediate that either. It's more trying to figure out, okay, what went wrong in this interaction? How can we make that better going forward? But that tends to happen a lot, and I you'll tell you, like, my team will tell you that I hate when I hear we partnered with this group to get something done. I'm like, what does that mean, partnered? Even if I use a sports analogy, can you imagine a football team of like the linebackers saying, hey, we partnered with the running backs to score this touchdown? There's no partnering. You guys are just one team. Like, if all of you don't work together, it's not going to happen, right? And so there's this mindset shift that needs to happen where people need to feel like a team, although they have specific capabilities and domains that they each own.
Yeah. Oh, I love the football analogy. I love sports analogies when it comes to leadership in general because I think it takes the like emotion sometimes out of it. But yeah, no, you would never say like the offense partnered with the defense. That's such a weird thing.
Yeah, yeah. And well, we lost the game, and it's like, guys, we did our job. I don't know about those guys over there. They totally messed it up. When you have teams like that, it doesn't go well, right?
No, they're not winning championships.
No, they're not.
Oh, I want to stick on technology for a second because this is my own just curiosity. So, in that type of structure that you have created, how do you deal with the challenge of sometimes in innovation, especially at the beginning? It is, especially to a big business like Land O'Lakes, it can be a small, very teeny tiny, like you could lose it in the parking lot kind of expense as far as revenue. Like we're talking about a $5 million project over here that maybe has potential, but it's taking away resources from like a $50 million revenue stream. How do you deal with the balance of if we invest time here on this little baby project now, it could grow while you still have to maintain this revenue stream over here?
Yeah. So I think it's in what you call it in a lot of times, right? So we'll stick to technology because that could be applied to R&D and a whole bunch of other. But in the technology, for example, we do a lot of experiments. So experiment is not even a project or something or an initiative. It's just something we're messing around with. And the clear mandate there is you work on it to improve for personal development, right? So if you want to go learn what quantum computing is, let's go do a little experiment on quantum computing. This thing may never go anywhere. It'll sit on a shelf. The only reason we use an ag or a dairy use case is so it makes it real and it's in our world. But it's just for you, 6, 7, whoever is involved in this, to learn this technology. You play around with it. You must have a start and an end, and then you can put it on the shelf. So at least you use that. And so those are become very easy to do. Instead of like, I want to go to this class, which people can do. It's more like, I want to go learn about quantum. Okay, go work on an experiment, see what that works. And then you're like, what did you learn from that? Was it fun? Like, is the technology there yet? Or, oh yeah, no, the infrastructure is not quite built. Those are the learnings people get out, and those are great. Then from experiments, we're getting into the prototyping phase. So that would normally be one of these pod teams say, hey, we have an idea. We're working on our big things that are like, that's necessary to hit our targets this year, and we're working on some stuff for next year. But we just want to mess around and like, we may think this thing may have some legs, but we just want to go prove it out. So all they have to do is carve out some time, because mostly it's time. The investment itself is not that big of a deal. Like, you go buy a couple of things, but it's more of the investment of people's brain power. But the idea is to make these teams say, you do need to have time to prototype, to try things may or may not go. And we do that. So that's a key piece of that. And there is a lot of times when something flips, where like, and again, when you do these prototypes, this is also the time where it goes out of technology, meaning like there are some technology people, but you also get some other people involved, and they go, really, we can do that? Like, what if we did? And that's how things get bigger. And over time, as this thing gets bigger, becomes one of the main things this team starts to work on. And then now becomes, okay, now we're making a big bet. We're dedicating our time to it. Let's go forward. So that's the way to start with, like, hey, don't be worried about just mess around and then like put on the shelf you wanted, to like, oh, this is like the next best thing we're going to do.
Yeah, think about it kind of like a snowball. I like what that you called it an experiment too. That also I feel like fits very well in agriculture. Like we're a very science-based industry. It just experiment feels not as scary, right?
It gives you the idea that like experiments fail. Yeah, they fail all the time. Different than like, oh, we have this big initiative. We better not screw that up. Like, you don't want to have that sort of pressure on you.
Yeah. Okay, from the human side of making change, what advice do you have for someone who is trying to make change in a large organization or trying to do something new or innovative?
I think that's a great question. Well, hopefully, first of all, people feel empowered enough to propose that, to make a change, to say, let's go try this, etc. Now, I will say before you go and go big and tell a lot of people, and then you get frustrated because nobody wants to listen to you or they don't want to take that risk, etc. The number one thing is you want to go make a change, but you better be prepared to change yourself because you may have an idea, but as it starts to unfold, what people tell you may go like, hey, yeah, I mean, maybe if you did this, and you got to be okay to start adjusting yourself. And better yet, why don't you get the other person, whoever you're pitching it to co-create with you? You have an idea, let them bring their sort of thought process into this, let them co-create with you because now they own it too. And now it's not a one person trying to change, it's two people trying to change it and three people. And as you go along, you may have to continue to adapt your thing, which is completely different from where you started at the beginning. So that's the issue a lot of times because people may not think the same way. Maybe they don't have the vision that you have, or maybe you don't have the sort of like the experience that they have seen before of why something may not work. So how can you continue to adjust it? And that's how you slowly start to make changes. And it may be completely different from the way you started, but it's important to be able to be open to adapt what you're trying to do as well. And that's how I think see things unfold. So that's one. The second thing is if you really want to be able to start to make change, influencing is a big deal. Having the ability to influence others gets others excited about the idea you might have, but not as your thing, right? So I love the one movie to go see would be Inception. I love that movie because you almost have to make it the other person's idea. And then they're like, they get so excited about their idea that they want to go do it. And again, are you going to get caught up and you're not getting the credit for it? So if you're stuck there, like this thing may not flourish the way you want to. But again, I'm not saying you go into somebody's dream and change their dreams and all that kind of stuff like Inception. But the ability to influence, and the influence really means that like I'm not trying to push my thing onto you, but I'm trying to get you to see what I'm trying to see, but you see it through your lens, and then together we can like go make something magical happen. So that's part of the magic and kind of pushing change in any given group, organization, et cetera, et cetera.
What would you say to someone who is working to make that change and maybe even they have a little bit of a mandate, right? Or a empowerment from leadership of like, this is the change that we want you to make, but they're running up against like brick walls with other team members or, just running into frustrations. It's going to happen anytime you're trying to make change. But what would you say to someone in that scenario?
Yeah. So, I mean, the question is, okay, when somebody puts up a brick wall for you, why are they putting up a brick wall? And it always starts with what's in it for them, right? Like it's a lot. Sometimes what might happen is let's take somebody who's got a great idea and they come to the technology organizations like, we need to use generative AI to do blah, 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 right? So the person in technology listening to this is going, oh my God, I think you're just going to create a lot more work and I may have to stay after hours to go do this thing that may not go anywhere, but I'm just going to lose, like hours of my life doing that. I mean, that's what they're thinking, right? So as the person pitching the idea to the technologist, you can't just tell them about the great idea and how awesome it's going to be and how you're going to benefit from it. They're gonna think what's in it for me. And so if you come with that lens, now all of a sudden you start to explain how they can participate in this big thing or help whatever and help me shape this thing and what do you think, etc. That's the secret sauce is how do you make sure that the other person starts to own it with you, right? And really understand what's in it for them or what's not in it for them, which is just as important. And then see if like can you start to adjust once you see that. You have to look at things from other people's lenses. That's going to be critical in anything that any individual wants to do going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So, someone listening to you, Teddy, might be like, well, that doesn't, I mean, influence is important. Yes. I think any of us who have been through a leadership workshop have heard that. But what you're saying maybe sounds like manipulation. How do I make it feel not icky?
Let me give you an example. So, like, I want to go eat Thai dinner tonight. And I come to you and I say, hey, we should go have Thai dinner tonight. And you're like, it's spicy, not in the mood for that. How would I get you to want to go to a Thai restaurant, right? And so the first place I would start is not necessarily like, okay, I'm going to manipulate you to go eat Thai food tonight. And you're not going to feel good about that at the end, right? So so let's use a practical example. So I might go, well, what are you in the mood for then? Right? Like, tell me what you're in the mood for. And you might go, well, I might go for this, I might go for that, etc. So this is where I go, now I have to be flexible to go, okay, maybe I don't want to, maybe Thai is not where I want to go, but maybe we could settle on like fusion food. maybe like, are you in the mood for sushi? Like maybe we can pick a place that has a little bit of both, right? And this and that. And oh, have you heard about this new place? Like, and you're like, no, like, do you know of any new places? Like, is there a place you've been wanting to try for quite some time? And this is the discussion you have, right? And so at the end, you might be more excited about going to try this thing that's been on your list forever than me going to eat Thai food at the end. So, and then we go eat, and and so like, have I manipulated you into eating Thai food? No. But what I've done is I've brought you into the fold of like, hey, let's go do something together. Let's go find something that we have common ground, something you like. I'm okay to bend where needed. And at the end, we might end up in a situation where we really enjoy our dinner and we've kind of tried something crazy that we hadn't done before, right? So this would be a way, I think, to do things. Because yeah, if it's manipulation, it will always be very, very apparent, right? Like, I mean, like you know it, like, you know, when somebody's trying to get you to do something you don't want to do. The key is like, are they genuine about this? Are they authentic? And are they looking out for my interest just as much as their own, or if not more, which I think is even more important. And then you start to change your attitude towards the whole thing. So
I really appreciate the example of just like trying to get someone to go to dinner because I think a lot of us have been in that scenario, right? Like, I will be honest, Teddy, I used to be a very, very picky eater. I love that you used the Thai food example because I love Thai food. It's one of my favorites, but it wouldn't have been many, many years ago. And it took someone being like, hey, what do you like? Why do you not like it? Do you like things like this? Maybe let's go try it together. Now it's one of my favorite places to like, if you said we're going to Thai food, I'm like, "Heck yes. Which restaurant? Let's go. Do you wanna share several things at once? Because I wanna try all the things on the menu." Such a good example to make it feel just like a normal conversation that we have every day, because I think sometimes in the workplace, those simple things of trying to get someone on board with an idea or with change can feel like so much more higher pressure than, I wanna go out to eat with you." And there's still conversations either way.
that's exactly right. And you brought it up. There's deadlines, there's pressures, there's hey, you need to deliver something. I want to be able to look like I made progress, right? Like all those things are mounting up. So you're like, I don't have time to spend time with Nicole and figure out how I can really get her involved. That seems like counterintuitive, but I'm like, but that actually is a thing that's going to accelerate things for you, like, or your progress in the future. So, and I think a lot of times we lose that. And the other big piece, like I kind of mentioned it in there, is this how you treat people. One of the biggest things is you got to treat people better than you would treat your own self. You stick with that, like things will be fine, right? And meaning it, right? Not like just it's nice to say, but I really don't mean that. Like you treat people and they can feel like you're putting their best interest ahead of yours, and that's felt in an authentic way. Like that's the way to get, you want to call it consensus or alignment or like support. All that comes with it afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Teddy. Well, I could talk to you all day, but I do need to get to a couple other segments and let you get on with your day. We're going to move into what we like to call speed mentoring here at the Cultivating Leaders podcast. So I'm going to ask you some kind of rapid fire questions. Just try to answer them as quick as you can.
Sure.
If you had to summarize your entire leadership philosophy in one sentence, what would it be?
Treat others better than you would treat yourself.
Okay, I said rapid fire, but now I've got to know, Teddy, because we just talked about this. Where did that idea or lesson or principle come from for you?
I had a couple of mentors in my life, and there are some that I remember. So you have mentors, you have coaches, and then you also have sponsors, right? And sometimes your sponsors and your mentors can be one and the same. You may not know that that's the case, but it could be. And sometimes your coach, which may not be your direct leader, could also be a sponsor in some cases. I've had two particularly that I felt that where they put like my interests ahead of their own, and one of them to their own detriment in a way. And I will never forget that. And I would do anything for that person now, right? Like they could call me and say, hey, I need you to fly here and help me with this. Like I'm there, right? Like hands down. And so I'm like, that is how we should be as humans. Like if we all operated that way, like relationships would be so much better between humans.
Yes. Oh, sorry. I had to ask the follow-up question. Okay, back to rapid fire. What is one principle you believe to always be true, no matter what the changes are in technology or agriculture?
I would say change is inevitable. Things will always change. That is the one thing you can rely upon. So it's learning to embrace the change. So whether it's you agree with the change or don't agree with the change, embracing it. I don't embracing it means change yourself. It just means understand what that change is see what things you may want to adapt from that new change, and continually adapt yourself to that, because that's going to be absolutely necessary. When you don't do that, I think you just have a harder time going forward. So technology, whether it's the AI thing we talked about now, there'll be something else in a few years that will come. Agriculture, things are constantly changing, right? And whether it's good for the bad, however you see it, that's always going to happen. So embracing it, understanding it, adapting to it, that's going to be critical.
What would you tell a young agriculturalist, or I would say young professional probably, who has a big, bold idea, but is scared of getting shot down?
I would say go for it. Like you have to, you have to try. Like if you don't try, I mean, I tell my 12-year-old this, hopefully it sticks one day. You can try and fail and you'll pick back up and do it again, right? If you never try, you've already failed. Like that's like not trying is failure in itself, right? And so might as well try. You never know, right? And so I would say try to go with the big bold idea. And we talked about a lot of things earlier as far as ways in which you can get your idea across, get others to help you with that, make sure you're ready to change your idea and adapt it to what somebody else might want as well, because that's how you kind of build together, but never be scared to take the shot.
What would Teddy from 10 years ago think of you now?
He would say I have a lot more patience and I talk way too much. And it's weird, right? Because I'm an introvert by nature. And so I recharge by being by myself. And younger years, I talked a lot less, which was not as good. I mean, there's good sides to being able to speak more, which this role has given me the opportunity to be able to have an opportunity to speak more and get my thoughts out clearly, et cetera, which I struggled with that in the past. But the one thing I feel like I am losing a little bit is the ability to listen. See, when you don't speak as much, you listen quite a bit more. And so that's the thing where it's like you don't listen as much because you talk way too much. And I can see that sort of struggle inside of me. But yes, that's what would happen.
Well, at least you're self-aware and you can see the difference now. So that's good. What do you hope the next generation of agriculture leaders dares to do differently than your generation?
You know, we talk about this all the time. I think one of the things that I would love for, and I even now, like even now, the folks that are in their early 20s, mid 20s, late 20s, they always think about, okay, well, how do I continue to advance my career? And my thing is, why don't you enjoy the job you're in right now? Right? And when I say by that is actually really have fun doing the work. And I think the next generation, that's what I would love for them to do is, again, my generation, we were, and the generation before that probably even more so, focused on career advancement, right? And get to the next level, get a bigger title, whatever, all those things might be. And I'm like, one thing that we miss is that enjoy the job itself, right? When I look back on my career, some of the jobs I enjoyed is the ones where I truly had fun doing the work and do a good job at it. Because when you enjoy the work, you do a great job at it. When you do a great job, you expand it naturally because you want to do even a better job. Not because you're going to get praise, not because you're going to get something out of it. It's just because you actually like doing it. And the more you can expand that way, all the other stuff will come. It will 100% come. But focus on doing that. And I think we can produce better work as a group, as a society, if we do that. So that would be my hope for the next generation.
Mic drop. That's great advice, Teddy. Yeah, I think if you're too focused on what's next, you forget to enjoy the season you're in and
Yeah,
how much fun you can have with the job that you're in right now.
that's exactly right.
Okay, what is the one leadership resource? It can be a book, podcast, anything along those lines that you would recommend people check out.
Book, the timeless book for me is Tuesdays with Maury. Like I've always loved that book. And I've read it. It's the only book I've read. Well, I've read a book twice, but this is the only book I know for sure I've read at least 4 times. And the reason I say that is because, the principles and all that. It goes back to where we started our conversation. How do you bring human back into the loop and bring more of our humanity out of us? And I think that book does that for me. It's an easy read. And I just go back and like, what really matters in life at the end of the day? And what are some of the things we should be doing every day? And so I love all the topics covered in there, all the lessons learned. And so that's one book for me is timeless. One podcast, of course, the Cultivating Leaders Podcast. I actually listened to that. I listened to it in Kansas the other day when I was driving back. It helps me prepare for some of the questions too. So there's a podcast called Acquired that I've been listening to lately, and it's only once a month, so that's a good thing. But they're long episodes. But it talks about companies that have been around for a long time and who they are, et cetera. And they have some little facts and anecdotes about these companies, and I find that to be interesting too.
Oh, good one. I have not read Tuesdays with Morrie, so that one's going to go.
No, you haven't?
I
Okay.
haven't. I'm a big reader too, so that is going on the list. Okay, what's the best leadership advice you've ever received?
The best leadership advice that I've received is, and again, so I don't want to take credit for the one I mentioned earlier, which is it was from my dad, and he would say, if you're going to do something, do it right. So I would rather you not do the job and I get upset with you rather than you do a lousy job. If you're going to do it right.
Yeah. Simple, but good.
Yes.
Okay, at AFA, we love hot takes. So, hot takes, bold opinions. What is a hot take or unconventional opinion about agriculture or technology in ag or the future of agriculture that you have, Teddy?
Yeah, we go back to what we said earlier. I think agriculture in a lot of cases gets viewed as this slow to move, non-technologically advanced industry, and it couldn't be further from the truth. I think we do some really interesting things. We just make sure we do it in such a way that we don't mortgage the future or screw up, kind of what we're trying to do, because there is a purpose to what we do. And so we want to be very mindful of it. But I think that's something but there's some really, really cool things we do in agriculture.
Amazing. Teddy, thank you so, so much for your time. I'll be honest, I think this has been one of my favorite episodes. I could keep talking to you for so long. As we wrap up, Teddy, where would you send people if they want to stay connected to you, to your work? Where can they find you?
If you go to landolakes.com, what you'll find is a bunch of recipes, and I do encourage everybody to go. One of the best things that came out of COVID for me is I got into baking. Like, that was another thing I did for a little while. I don't do it as much now. It's sad. I probably have to go back to it. But if you want to know some of the work that Land O'Lakes as an organization, as a cooperative, we're doing, landolakes.inc.com is probably the place to go, and you can see a lot of who we are, kind of get the full breadth of the Land O'Lakes cooperative system. Our members, and some of the work that we do every day, which is really, really exciting.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Teddy, for your time, your wisdom, your lessons, your ideas for the future. I know that I gained some things from this episode, and I know our listeners will too. So thank you so much.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Cultivating Leaders Podcast, brought to you by Agriculture Future of America. If you've been here before, you know we value feedback as a gift. Please leave us a review and let us know how we're doing.